If you pick the wrong physics curriculum for your child, they're going to struggle. And if they struggle, they're not going to like physics. And once they get to the point of not liking it, it's very hard to get them back. And it makes homeschooling physics very difficult. But here's the thing the parents don't realize. It's not the curriculum that's bad. Linear or sequential learning isn't wrong. Spiral learning isn't wrong. But matching the wrong method to your child's learning styles, it can destroy their love of science forever. Hi, I'm Robin with Centripetal Education, and over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to identify your child's learning styles, and then we can match that to the best type of curriculum for them, which is going to set them up for success, not failure. So if you're ready to choose your child's physics curriculum right now, don't make the decision without watching the entire video. Okay, so let's start off by discussing the two main types of curriculum we have out there. We have sequential curriculum and spiral curriculum. Now, pretty much any physics textbook you get off of Amazon or from a used bookstore even, they're going to be, for the most part, they are sequential. Now, what is sequential? It means that if we start at chapter 1, chapter 2 is going to build on what we learned in chapter 1, and then chapter 3 builds on 1 and 2, and so on and so forth, until we hit a point where we've completed a unit of study. So let's say like mechanics, for example. We would do all of mechanics, and we'd get to the end of mechanics, and everything would have built on everything we'd learned before. Now we go to the next unit, let's say energy, for example. It's going to rely a little bit on what you already learned. It's going to go back and hit some of that past knowledge you now have, but it's going to continue to build on the new topic of energy. When we talk about a spiral method, such as this one here, this is Saxon's physics book, and this one's a little different. In a spiral curriculum, what happens is you don't spend a lot of time on one particular topic. You'll come in, maybe it's the idea is introduced, and the next lesson you're into something else. So, for example, I used mechanics and energy in the when talking about sequential. You might get a lesson on basic, let's say, speed and velocity in lesson 1 in the spiral set. In lesson 2, you go to something else. Maybe you go to energy. Lesson 3, electricity and magnetism. And it keeps going around like a spiral staircase. But like that spiral staircase, if you think about it, they have multiple points of structure that supports them. So what's happening is every time you go around that circle, you're touching that point. And it will build on previous knowledge, just maybe not in a very straight and logical pattern as some of you may see it. So why are these good for some, not for others? If we look at it again at the sequential, this is going to be for the student who wants a step-by-step progression. They want to see things in they see as an orderly fashion. I start here, I go to there. But sometimes we have students that get bored easily. They need to be challenged. They need to try different things. I don't want to say kids with ADD, but in some cases it might be beneficial for a student with ADD to look at something like a spiral learning platform. What this does is it goes around, and you get to see the things multiple times, you touch it multiple times, but you're never there long enough to get bored with it. Now, I said for a minute we would discuss trying to find your child's learning styles. And there are several learning styles. We can have where they need to be involved. They need to be up out of their seat doing something. They could be just somebody who needs to watch it. They may just need to hear it. They may need to read it. They may need to explore it on their own and try different things to see how it works. Every one of those is going to be a different learning style. So let's take a minute and see if we can give you some ideas on how to figure out what kind of learner your child is. I want you to think back and ask yourself, how do they like to learn to play a new video game or how to do a new hobby? Do they want to go to the library and get a book out and read it? Do they want to just jump in and play it? What are they doing? If they're solving problems, they're solving puzzles. Do they like to work systematically or do they do a lot of different approaches? Do they try different things to see which is going to be the best one for them? If they're reading a how-to manual, do they read it from cover to cover or do they go to the chapters that most interest them about the topic they're trying to learn? Are they constantly prepping with the question of why? Why do we have to do this? How does this work? Where does it integrate to what we're doing? Knowing those pieces will give you a pretty good basis to start working from. I'm going to make the assumption that you have already homeschooled your child a little before. This is not your first time into this arena. How did they handle their past math and science lessons? Were they able to get it in bouncing around, or did they need to go piece by piece by piece, only adding in a new section at a time and following that linear progression? Notice how they solve their problems. Are they detail focused oriented or do they look at the big picture first? Likewise, pay attention to what their natural problem solving approach is. Looking at all these questions is going to give us a pretty good idea if we're looking at somebody who is going to be more of a sequential learner versus a spiral learner, a global, or a detail learner. So which curriculum should you choose? If you have a child who is more of a sequential learner or a linear learner, what you're going to be looking for is probably going to be the very basic traditional textbook. That's the best place to start. It's going to lead them along step by step by step. It's going to give them everything they're after. Every piece of the learning structure is based on what they have before. And again, you can think about this like a staircase. All right, if we go from one level to the next level, from floor 1 to floor 2, every step takes you a little bit more on the journey. But what happens is we're building on what we've already done. And you can imagine that each of the landings is the end of that particular topic. So maybe the first topic being mechanics, we go from 0 to that first level. That's our level for mechanics. From level 1 to level 2, we're doing energy. And we're learning all about energy. It requires a little bit of the knowledge you had before, but it's pretty much a linear shot straight up from where we're going. Now, there are several options you can look at here, and I don't want to try naming off a bunch because each one is different. Each of us is going to pick a different textbook for different reasons. And I am going to focus on that in another episode. What you're going to look for, though, is one that meets your beliefs, your reasonings. It's going to meet the criteria you have for why you're doing this. Now, spiral learners are going to really be looking for a program that's going to give them multiple touches of each of the topics, but never dwell very long on a topic. You're not going to find these as, section 1 mechanics and have everything there. You're going to find things that are going to have maybe 100 lessons. And again, I'm going to pick on the Saxon book here. 100 lessons, it covers everything you need to know, but it doesn't do it it doesn't do it section by section. It's constantly changing what you're studying. Now, things that may be good to look for in a spiral program, you want to look for those real world connections, and you need to make sure that the content is constantly repeated. They have constant exposure to it. I mentioned earlier that there are several learning styles, okay, the kinematic, the auditory, visual, all those different kinds. You're going to find those styles in every type of learner. So one of the things you're going to have to do as the parent, as the teacher, as you're going through this, you're going to have to make sure that you're going to want to do multiple things in each of the lessons that's going to enhance all the different areas. You know your child best. You'll know which ones to focus on. But if you're teaching, for example, at a co-op where you're dealing with multiple students, now you need to figure out how you're going to bridge that gap and really show the different learning styles in each section you're doing. So remember, your child's not going to struggle as much or dislike physics as much if you match the right model to their learning style. It's not about finding the best curriculum out there. It's about finding the best curriculum for your student. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. Before you buy another curriculum or anything else, take 5 minutes and talk to your child. Ask them those questions I mentioned before. Watch them as they're going through a natural problem-solving experience. Use that as your guide. Let that be the part that's going to walk you through where you're going to go. If you'd like to get some more information on how to implement the different learning styles into any course, if you'd like to get more information on how to address all the different learning styles in either method of curriculum, down in the description there's a link. Click on that and I'll send you a free PDF that talks about the different learning styles and some ideas on how you can implement them, all for free. And if trying to implement these new learning styles into your presentations intrigues you, be sure not to miss the next video, where I'm going to share a few key tips on how you can make any curriculum more engaging by hitting more learning styles.